Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where some crazy ass old biddies come to you and talk about romance, whether that's in books, movies, TV shows, whatever we're feeling that day. My name's Liz.
I'm Danny.
Oh yeah, I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to the show.
Apparently we're on the struggle bus today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm always together, prepared. Yep.
Anyway, this episode is going to be a little bit different. We're not talking about a book. We're not talking about a movie. We're talking about a TV show. We're talking about The Good Place.
I love The Good Place so much.
But before we talk about The Good Place, we got to know what you guys have been up to. What have you been reading or watching, or what you doing? Talk to me.
I decided a cowboy, so I poured.
Baldur's Gate 3 is out, so the fact that I'm even doing this is kind of a miracle.
Hey, if I did play Baldur's Gate instead, I would have understood.
Well, so I've already played the first chapter, so it's also kind of like there are a few surprises, but not many. So I'm really just trying to get to that second chapter and be like, okay, what were you building up to? I need to see it. But okay, so the people who have played will know what I'm talking about. So there's a character named Bastarian who's a sexy blonde elf vampire.
Wait, she's a vampire?
He's a vampire.
He's a vampire?
Yeah.
So he's just right up Wiggles' alley.
He's kind of whiny and bitchy, like a rich bitch kind of
Oh.
thing. So kind of. But he is like the one that you're like, ooh, oh boy. And one of the changes they made to him is that he now has arm porn. In the night scenes, and I'm like, because before he had these just Elizabethan era puffy sleeve things.
I'm not here for
No, now he has just like tan undershirt rolled up to the elbows. It's like, god damn. How dare you?
Okay, well, I was not in video game land with you gals. I finished reading Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. It's supposed to be a cozy fantasy. It was kind of meh to me, honestly. Like a lot of high stakes.
Oh, yeah, and if you're reading cozy fantasy, you want cozy.
Yeah.
And then I decided to flip it around. And I read Satan's Affair by H.T. Carlton.
That sounds spicy.
Okay. Have you guys seen all of the fucking TikTok shit about Hunting Adeline or Haunting Adeline?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the novella that is like the prequel to that. All of the trigger warnings in the world. All of them.
Oh.
And I got through most of the book and I was like, I like almost DNF'd it, but I was like, it's a novella. I can finish it. And then you get to the end and you're like, what the fuck? So the ending does make up for it, but there's a lot
Getting there's hard.
Yeah, getting there is. So I don't know if I will Hunting Adeline.
You know, they're so hyped on TikTok. And where did that lead us last time? Ice Planet Barbarians.
And Hooked.
Like, the dark romance girlies have really taken over book talk, and they have a lot to answer for.
This one is, so the premise of Satan's Affair is the main character Sybil, or Sibby, left at the age of 18, this like Branch Davidian-esque.
Gross.
Yeah. Grew up there and it was awful. So trigger warning, for any of that. And then she joins a traveling Halloween like carnival and lures people that she's evil into the haunted house so she can murder them.
God damn.
Oh.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a promising young woman kind of thing, only not that promising.
Sure.
You've never seen that movie? Oh, okay. Well, okay. I'm not going to give anything else away, although that's not giving it away. It's in the fucking trailer. There's the premise is that this girl goes out. She's like about our age, maybe a little bit younger. She goes out every night and pretends to get hammered so that a guy will attempt to take her home, and then she confronts him about it.
Oh. Yeah.
So she's like, no, I need to go home. I'm so drunk. And then she's like, no, I need to go home. And they have to, recognize what they were about to do to her. And it's one of those movies where you will be upset, disturbed, angry, sad, just like you'll feel every fucking emotion, and you'll hate it and you love it at the same time. It's really good.
I saw an experiment like that on YouTube where they did that. She went out and she had people that were watching her back and everything and were close, but she would act completely hammered and then walk in like the downtown areas of these big cities and everything and see what happened. And it was fucking terrifying. And she goes, here's the thing. I know that I am relatively safe. One, I'm not drunk. Two, I have security and everything. And yet I was still frightened.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing about this movie. I don't say this about very many. It fucking stuck with me. Like, not for a day, not for a couple days, for like weeks. I was like, it was in the back of my head, just processing it. And it's one of those ones where people had really fucking strong reactions to it emotionally that they couldn't get past it, I think, in order to actually really like think about what this movie was doing. Anyway, that's not what we're supposed to be talking about.
No. We can get onto that. Yeah, so we're talking about The Good Place. Talk to me about The Good Place.
Well, The Good Place is a TV show that basically, when you start out, these humans think that they're in the good place. Eleanor Shellstrop is the main character, and she wakes up and she's literally in front of a big green sign that says everything's fine. And she gets taken in and says, Eleanor, you have died. You're in the good place. And she meets a bunch of people and everything, and eventually you come to find out that they are not in the good place. There are 4 particular...
Hold up.
What?
Spoiler warning. If you've not watched the show, you need to stop listening right now.
We did forget to do our normal spoiler warning.
At this point, I just assume that if you're listening to us, you are understanding that
That's
we're
a
talking
big
about the full
spoiler,
subject.
though. That's a big spoiler. Did you watch that happen? No, you didn't. But did you watch that happen, like, in real time? Because I was one of the people who was watching it happen on TV, right?
I did not watch it in real time. I watched it. I was binging.
See, I don't think it hits quite as big if you're binging, but that reveal was like, oh my God. Like, you've gotten so settled in and comfortable with the fucking premise, and then it's like, boom. Just kidding. Fuck your shit.
Well, so there you go. I guess your massive spoiler warning. Danny, why don't you tell us what you were about to spoil for people?
Okay, as it turns out, there are 4 people that have been put in this neighborhood, and they are the only 4 humans in the neighborhood. Everyone else are demons, and they're there trying to get them to torture each other.
And they are in the bad place.
They are in the bad place.
Not the good place.
Yeah, and that's just the first season of
Yep.
4.
This show, it should not have been as good as it was. Like, just thinking about the way TV works, it should not have been able to have such distinctively different seasons.
Yeah.
And still been fucking amazing. And he still cared about every character. And it was just, it's an anomaly.
Well, and it's really fucking funny, and then it also gives you unexpected feelers, like like emotionally damaging at the end.
Well, for fuck's sake, I didn't think it was that emotional of a show, and then I was watching some recaps to just kind of like catch myself up, and there was one that was like just hitting emotional beat after emotional beat, and I was like, you motherfuckers, I'm gonna cry watching a 10-minute YouTube video about a show that ended years ago. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I rewatched, so going completely out of order here and talking about the end of season 3, and one of the recaps I watched was Cheedy's Goodbye, and I was just like, oh no, the feels, again, they're coming back.
Right?
Which one? Which Cheedy Goodbye?
The one where he has to get his memory wiped.
Ah,
Yep.
Yes.
Liz didn't finish until after I had already started talking about The Good Place, and I think it was like a week later you must have like finished watching it, and all of a sudden we get a text that's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with TV is a lot of times you don't get the like fully wrapped up ending.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did a fabulous job on that.
Yes, they did. But that's because they actually took half of a season to actually wrap it up, it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there are very few shows that have had showrunners that have a goal in mind and then stop when they reach that goal.
That's true.
That is true. Like,
And-
they could have milked that for so many more years, but they didn't.
Like, perfect example, if you look at the show Supernatural, that was supposed to end after like season 5, I think. Like, that was their termination point, and you can fucking tell
Oh, yeah.
it just got worse and worse and less coherent.
Well, I mean, there certainly were parts of Supernatural after season 5 that were good, but yeah, it was less coherent and everything up to that.
Right. Well, and I still, like I said, it did get worse and worse, but at the same time, there were moments that were worth watching. But this, that deterioration didn't happen at
No.
all. And I think that much like other shows which have just like fucked themselves up, this one could have gone that way as well.
Well, and I love the constant callbacks to like earlier seasons and everything. And it's stuff you didn't see in the previous season. Like, he lets Eleanor see her memories, and you get to see a whole time span that you never saw in the first season, which took place technically during the first season.
Yeah.
Because he reboots them like over 700 times.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, again, we're still in the first season with that because he continues to fuck up the bad place, and they keep figuring out they're in the bad place.
I think that's
So-
the second season.
Is it? I thought that was
The-
still the first season.
No, it's still the first season.
Yeah.
Maybe I remember wrong.
The second season is,
When they start to teach him to be good and
Yeah.
to trying to escape the bad place by going through the portal to talk to the judge.
and then the third season is when the judge agrees to send them back to Earth so they earn their place.
Right.
Yes, in the fourth season, they're in the good place. Oh God, yeah, I love that justification of how bad the good place actually is.
Well, I mean, so many things about the way that this show works is to reflect where we are at right now, right?
Mhm.
Michael has this great speech where he's, defending humanity to the judge, where he's like, it's not fair that humanity is judged the way they are because there's no way to be ethical in the world as it exists right now. You are constantly in a state where consumerism ruins the good intention you might have had.
Yeah, because you're
Right.
stuck with unintended consequences of using a smartphone, of, terrible practices as far as immigration and labor for immigrants and everything like that. Like, no matter what you do. I do love that the judge went to Earth to try to see it. She was gone for like 2 seconds. And she's like, the first thing I did when I got back was I Googled big, juicy, natural tomatoes. And all of them were like, oh no.
So, not to completely change the subject, but we are a romance podcast, and I really do want to talk about the romances because I think that's going to also talk about how weird things get.
Yeah, I love the relationships that are built in this show.
Well, I think first let's kind of, talk about who these characters really are, right? So the 4 humans, if you will, that are the main subject of this are Eleanor, Chidi, Jason, and Tahani. And they all have done things in their lives that would have put them in the bad place, maybe even if they were not being judged by this like flawed system, but also have done things that would have maybe put them in the good place. And so there's this whole dichotomy of like, maybe there should be a neutral place, and that's a whole lot of fun for later.
Oh, the medium place.
The medium place. Oh my god. And then there is Michael, who is this demon who he's played by Ted Danson, who is an older actor, so he kind of gives off this like seasoned wise character, but ultimately is basically the equivalent of being a junior manager at a major corporation.
It's true. He's
And
the architect.
the architect, right? And then there's Janet, and there are many Janets, but our Janet is special Janet because we decided in the show that she's special Janet, but she's a good Janet that Michael has kidnapped from the good place and forced to be in the bad place. And she's not a girl. She's not a robot. She's an all-knowing interdimensional thing.
Yeah.
She's basically an informational mainframe that can pop things into existence.
Right.
Yeah, she's a fucking genie.
Yeah.
And she makes a pleasant ding when she appears. And scares the shit out of Eleanor all the fucking time, and it cracks me up every time.
In subsequent seasons, we definitely get some other characters that are really important, but those 6 really are the core of the show.
Yes.
So, which relationship do you want to start with?
Well, there's the main one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's go for gold.
So Eleanor and Chidi are brought into the good place the first time, told they are soulmate, which we then learn soulmate's a real thing. This just chose to mess with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to overcome a lot of obstacles together. One of them being Eleanor telling Chidi right away, no, she's not supposed to be. It's a different Eleanor that's supposed to be
The real Eleanor.
the real
That one
Eleanor.
cracks me up every time, too.
And bad Eleanor.
Fake Eleanor.
Fake Eleanor.
I love the way real Eleanor, her real name's Vicky, I think.
Yes.
When you find out more about her and her like her whole like acting premise, like she's like, I'm a serious actor. She gives off that vibe so strongly.
But Chidi is a professor of ethics and moral
Yeah.
philosophy. And Eleanor, as her words, she is a trash bag from Arizona.
Yep.
She worked in a really shitty call center that sold people fake medicine. She was overall kind of a dick.
Yeah. But the more you get to know her, the more you realize that she is one of those people who is like that as a self-defense mechanism. She
Oh,
wasn't really
very
given
much
the
so.
support to be a good person, right? Her parents absolutely fucking failed her.
Mm-hmm.
And even when she wants to do good, she kind of gets punished for it in life.
Yeah, she does. And she never had good examples. And she emancipated herself at 16
Mm-hmm.
because she just couldn't deal with her parents anymore. And while I agree that she needed to get away from them, I'm not sure that that was maybe the best decision either, because that's a lot to take on when you're...
Yeah, but I don't think she have any opportunity.
That's true.
So
'Cause they...
Well,
they were something.
I think that the choice to make a character like Eleanor so integral to the saving of humanity is so smart, because they didn't go, we're gonna find the Steve Rogers of this world, right?
Yeah.
But they also didn't go, we're gonna find somebody who is absolutely evil and then slowly build them up into being a good person, because I'm sorry, no one would be able to tolerate a Jeffrey Dahmer in this situation, right? But having her be so average bad,
Mm-hmm.
there are things that she does throughout the show that I think at various points people can relate to, of like, yeah, I maybe didn't stick up for that person, or I took advantage of somebody,
Mm-hmm.
or I said something that I knew would be fucking cruel for no reason, right? And so it doesn't let you off the hook, right? This is
Mhm.
not a bad person, but it is a bad person. And so are you, right? It kind of like makes you have to have that feeling
Mm-hmm.
of, guess what? She might not be a member of the KKK, or she might not be a psycho killer, but she isn't good, right?
Well, I mean, she was the relatable one in that aspect, but Chidi is bad of his inaction. Whole premise,
Mhm.
because he couldn't do any.
Right.
Well, and he made everybody around him miserable because
Yeah.
of his indecision and everything he did. Like, the reason he died is literally because they stood there for 30 fucking minutes trying to decide on a restaurant, and an air conditioner fell out of the window and hit him.
Well, and there is this dichotomy that exists where if you don't do anything, sure, you don't do anything bad per se, but you also don't do anything good.
Yeah, he didn't do anything to earn him a place in the good place either.
Right. Although I do think he, by that logic, belongs more in the medium place, but
Oh, yeah.
Right, but there was the
Mindy St. Clair.
Mindy St.
Oh, she's too much fun.
Oh, what an 80s.
Well, okay, so I know we were supposed to be talking about Chidi and Eleanor, and I want to, but I also want to talk about Mindy St. Clair and Derek.
Oh my god.
Which is one of my fucking favorite compilations, if you will, of all the like interactions you get to have with them, and the wind chime genitals and like all that shenanigans. The things she says, like there's a bit where Eleanor is like asking about how they got out of trouble before and whatnot, and she was like, you literally go back every single time, sometimes because you feel morally obligated to, sometimes because you walk in on me masturbating, and sometimes because I walk in on you masturbating.
No, it's sometimes I walk in on you while I'm masturbating.
Right.
It's like, I'm not even sure how that's possible.
Sometimes you gotta do a walkabout while you're feeling yourself, I guess.
I can't say I have ever had that urge,
No,
but
no, me either. But
Well, I get the sense that the deal with the medium place is that it's so medium that there's got to be such limited sensation in general, and so like you'll take whatever you can get.
yeah, everything's just so boring. Like
Mhm.
the only movies she has are like Cannonball Run 2 and the making of Cannonball Run 2.
Right,
And then she has Anne Rice vampire novels with stains on them.
I don't know, the way they were describing the medium place, I was like, this medium place, this is a bad place. It might not be, ripping your face off bad place, but this isn't.
Yeah, it's constant and warm beer.
Yeah.
Well, the medium place is like Earth, is what I just kept coming back to. I was like, it's like every bad day you've had, where it wasn't like disastrous, but it wasn't a good day. It was
Yeah.
it was a shitty day.
So today, for
Have warm beer.
it was that kind of day.
This is the bad place.
This is the bad place.
My favorite one is the moment when Jason is the one to figure it out. He's like, wait, guys, I think this is the bad place. And Michael's like, Jason figured that out? Oh, this is an all-time low for me. Because he is possibly the dumbest person you've ever seen.
He is, but God, is he.
He's so funny and he's so sweet. Like,
Yeah.
he honestly does try really hard for his friends and everything. It's just that he's really not smart.
He's from Florida.
He is the definition of Florida man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
At one point, Eleanor's like, Chidi, I'm your nicest friend. No, Jason. I'm your hottest friend. No, Tahani. I'm your friend. It's like he is so sweet and he's so genuine for the most part. It's just, oh, Florida man. And his solution to everything is a Molotov cocktail.
It is a solution. It's
Although
just-
It's a
it kind of
choice.
begs the question, like, can you hold someone that stupid accountable for their actions to the point where you would put them in the bad place? That was always like the one thought that I had. I was like, yeah, he's a fucking idiot who did some really dumb shit that definitely was not good. But like, his motivations were not at all bad. Like, he was just like, yeah, this will be really fun, and not thinking that the world had consequences.
Well, but he did steal stuff and he was aware that that's not okay.
It's true. It's true.
Like, he
But
does
his
have a
evolution is
conscience.
almost more engaging, I think, than Eleanor's is, even by the end.
Yeah, his relation to Janet.
It's so funny.
When they get married and Eleanor, does anybody object? And both Tahani and Eleanor, of course we do. Yes. Overruled.
Well, I also love that he realized that their Janet was not, or his Janet, if you will, was not, something was off, because he was like, she didn't say not a girl when I said, that's my girl. She always says, not a girl. It's cute.
Not a girl, not a robot. I love when she pops in first. It's the first time you ever see Janet. Chidi calls her and they ask about the bad place and she goes, "Oh, sorry, that's the one thing I can't tell you about. I can play you a brief clip of what's happening there right now." And it's just shrieking, screaming, and somebody yells, "The bears have two faces." It's like, well, it doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
I do really love Tahani though, because she comes back around as far as like she has a lot of character growth towards the end, and she realizes that life is not all about how people or being like seen as the best or stuff like that. But I just thought she was so interesting throughout the entire thing. And her relationship with Eleanor is so funny. Every time Eleanor just being like, I don't know, maybe I am attracted to her.
Side note, I might be really attracted to Tawny.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean, she's fucking gorgeous. I just stare at her. Okay, now that we've gone on to a tangent about Jason, a little bit about Tahani, let's go back to talking about Eleanor and Chip. I love their relationship. I think they're fucking cute as shit. And I like the different facets of their relationship over all of the years that they were together in the afterlife and then back on Earth and everything, and how their relationship could change over time, but they always ended up being super important to each other.
Yeah, which is twist them originally being and finding exist, coming back together as it.
Well, and in a lot of the reboots, they weren't romantically involved whatsoever, but they still became incredibly important to each other, incredibly good friends, really best friends. And that's kind of what I like about the relationship, because they're not just, oh my god, I think I love you. They've built a relationship of mutual respect over time every single time. And the very first time that they actually fall in love and admit it to each other, the moment that they fall in love is so simple and so sweet and makes me want to vomit a little bit. But he's about to sneeze, and before he even does it, Eleanor grabs a tissue and hands it to him, and it's that moment of anticipating another person's needs is the moment that they fell in love. And I'm like, well, that's just fucking adorable, and I hate that I love it so much. I love it and hate it at the same time.
I don't know. I think the thing about them that works the best is that they have that yin and yang quality to them. Like, where Chidi's panicked and frantic and cannot get focused in on something once he gets into that state, Eleanor, when under pressure, that's her best self,
yeah,
right?
She weirdly evens out.
Yeah.
And in the reverse, that when all things are calm and all things are even, you will find Chidi relying on the wisdom of others to make decisions and things like that, even though he is wildly indecisive, versus Eleanor, it's just going to fall back on whatever is easiest. And so they have this very polar opposite thing that we see all the time in romance novels and things like that, where it's like, I'm a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll. And it's like, okay, well, let's mix that peanut butter with that chocolate and see what we get, you know? I don't know. I also like that Chidi doesn't see Eleanor as the Arizona trash bag from the beginning. Like, he's like, you shouldn't be here, and he's freaked out about it, but he does not see her in the same light that she sees herself. And once again, Eleanor doesn't see Chidi the way Chidi sees himself either. She sees him as a nerd and a dork, but yeah.
She also sees him as somebody that's reliable and like somebody that is always there. And even though Chidi might see himself in a positive light, he's always so wishy-washy. But when it comes to Ellen, he kind of
he just knows.
Yeah.
I will say this show, which is seemingly kind of family friendly, is very adult.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's so good at writing that very fine line of like, is this inappropriate? Well, we're gonna try to sneak it by. Like, I love that there's one part where when they're right outside the good place, and Chidi finds a mailman's uniform,
Oh, yeah.
and she's
The
just
mail station
losing
outside
her
the
mind
good
about it, and it's like, do you have a fucking mailman kink? Like, what is this? I don't know. It's there's so many things like that throughout the show. It's not just tied to Chidi and Eleanor's relationship, but they do a really good job of making very adult points without ever going too far into that adult range, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just the way it explores emotions, it is still family friendly, but like it is extremely. I think one of my favorites is actually to the end when Chidi gets his memories back, and he remembers everything about Ellen. Reads her file. All of a sudden, he is not feeling worthy of Ellen. He's like, "Look at my file. I didn't do anything. I'm boring. And look at your file. You did all of these things." And Eleanor's like, "Well, does it bother you that I did those things? No, you just did cool things. Okay, well then we're good." So just the different exploration of like how relationships can work, I think is very interesting.
It is. I also really like the moments where they learn from each other, because the whole preface is that she's supposed to be learning ethics from him. But he also learns things from her. For instance, when she's really gotten into ethics. She's super fucking stoked about it and everything. And she's kind of in his face about it, like constantly. And he just wants a little time to himself. He's supposed to be in paradise. And it's a moment for her of realization that she needs to take into account other people's thoughts and feelings on the things. She then recognizes that if he does succeed in getting her to stay, it means that his soulmate, because at this time they believed that they were in the good place, it means that his soulmate would never be there. And so every ounce of her happiness would cause him a lot of pain. And on the same scenario, she basically tells him that you need to just tell me to fuck off occasionally.
Right.
And so he has to learn that he needs to stand up for himself a little bit. There are moments where you are allowed to say, I can't deal with this right now, and that you need to step away. And that was just a really sweet moment for me of her being like, okay, I hear you and I understand, but also I need you sometimes to tell me when I'm doing these things. Because sometimes when we're excited, we don't notice that we're being fucking annoying. I know I do it to you guys. Yay, ADHD. Should we talk about my favorite relationship in the show?
Lead us to it.
Jason
and Janet. That's an interesting one because, like, it doesn't make a lick of sense.
No.
But it also doesn't seem forced because as Janet is rebooted and learning how to essentially human, some similar version thereof, she has Jason who's just like there being honestly dumb, but, you know, just supportive and nice and like, hey, you're cool. It's okay.
Well, and the whole reason that she really enjoys his company in the first place is because when she gets rebooted the first time, she literally knows nothing.
Yeah.
And so she asks him at one point, what are jalapeno poppers? And he gets super excited and he tells her what they are. And it's a real sweet moment of, oh, I get to help you with something and I'm super excited to help you with something. He is a really adorably sweet person. Dumb as a box of rocks. He literally, how Jason dies is locked himself in a safe with a snorkel because he thought he would be able to breathe that way, and did a bunch of whippets while his friend tried to bring him into a restaurant to install the safe so that they could rob the place.
And he suffocated
in the safe and did not realize until years of being in the afterlife why that didn't work, to wear the snorkel in the safe.
Well, they all really had embarrassing deaths. Like, Eleanor is literally having a depresso espresso moment and is like in the supermart with like, you know, the schleppy sweatpants and the sweater that's like falling off of you, and goes to get margarita mix and then drops it in the fucking parking lot and gets plowed over by a bunch of shopping carts. And then Tahani is being a dramatic little bee and is ruining her sister's event of some kind. And
She's being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes, and pulls a statue of her sister down onto herself. So
Tahani's relationship with her sister both cracks me up and also depresses me a little bit because her sister literally is the golden child. Like, her parents don't give two shits about Tahani.
Other than to pit the sisters together, that was the whole thing.
Yeah, they pit them against each other constantly. And it's stupid. Like, they just let them be sisters. She painted a birdie with a hat. Be happy for her.
I can't.
No, and that thing was fucking cute as shit.
Yeah, I don't... There's so much about this show that makes you kind of explore what is good and what is bad. And...
Well, and the thing with Tahani being in the bad place, she literally raised billions for charity. Billions. But all she was trying to do was gain her parents' respect. And so her motivations were off. She didn't care about the people she was actually helping. She just wanted the attention and to be seen. And so it's like, that's really hard because you're like, she was such a good person. Look at her. She raised all this money. And then, nope. it meant nothing because she wasn't actually doing it for the right reason.
Well, her sister could probably be in category. It's famous for doing all of these things, music, art, whatever. I never really seen.
Yeah, no, she just was doing whatever she wanted
Do.
or whatever her parents told her to do. It is a really lovely moment between them when she realizes that the paintings that she had in this gallery meant to represent like her parents together in one area and then them apart.
Yeah.
And it's like, she's like, oh my God, all because they're all just like random paintings and random like circular objects where the two are together and two apart, or triangles or whatever. And she realizes after she's about to be arrested that she painted them. It was their relationship and their parents' relationship and how they were always separate. And it's a really lovely moment where they get back together and notice and everything.
Well, the show does do a good job of sneaking up on you with that stuff.
Oh, yeah, it does. You're like, out of nowhere, you're like, oh, yeah, you're going to get a cat fight between Camilla and Tahani. And then it's like, oh, no, she's hugging her.
And then they have the beautiful moment when they finally get to go to the good place where they are friends and they are getting along really well. And then eventually their parents pass and they have to go through this whole growth process of trying to be a family, a good family.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of their solutions at the end of like, what is a good place and how do you make it a good place, is that
Yeah.
nobody gets off scot-free. Pretty much everyone has to go through similar trials as what the main four had to go through to get to the point where they were at the good place, right? You have to go through the growth process that you're maybe not afforded on Earth.
Absolutely. And it's more about learning too,
Mhm.
in what they
Yeah.
change the afterlife to. Because when they arrive in the good place initially, they realize that it's a happiness pump. Like they're so dead inside because everything is perfect.
Yep.
And so they give them the ability to end it if they would like to. When they decide that it is their time, they can walk through this archway and basically be absorbed by the universe.
I don't know what happens after that. Are they reborn? We don't know what the true afterlife, good place, bad place.
Which I think is really smart of them to do, because it kind of puts a little asterisk next to it that says, like, we still don't fucking know,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and just life can still end then, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff doesn't mean as much if it can go on forever and ever.
Well, it's the same concept as, I'll make the reference, The Matrix, when the machines couldn't function it, recreate all the good and bad of Earth in the Matrix to buy it.
Yeah. Things can't be perfect all the time. We'll go nuts.
Well, it's the classic, how do you know what light is if it's never dark?
Correct. And I like being.
Okay, Miss Goth over there.
Which is funny because currently of the three of us, dark gray dress for you,
Hey, it's got polka dot.
dark shirt and pants for you,
All day, every day.
and I have a hot pink shirt on.
Yeah, but like, we're all just dead inside.
Good argument, Liz.
I am dead inside, let's
Yeah,
be
but
honest.
you know.
Real insightful.
Oh, man.
We have mentally blue screened Liz like 8 times.
I had a hellish.
And
I'm
you're on
going on
vacation.
vacation.
Mhm.
A good thing to talk about transversely is maybe the other relationships that involved the main people. For instance, when they're back on Earth, Chidi has a very meaningful relationship with a woman named Simone.
Simone got done dirty.
Yeah, she really did.
Yeah, Simone did get done dirty.
That's one of the few things that I don't really like about the show, is that you create this character who honestly in many ways is perfect for Chidi and really likes him, and they're weird and quirky in a way that really balances each other out, and you don't want them to succeed because you're like fully on the Eleanor train now, right?
Yeah.
But Simone really got fucking screwed over here.
And
Like,
I love Simone and Chidi's relationship.
yes.
I think they're really fucking cute together, and I really liked how supportive Eleanor was of their relationship because she didn't know the past of them. They didn't know that they had died and come back or anything, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's a really cute moment where they have him in an MRI and they're taking pictures of his brain while they're asking him questions. And so Eleanor all of a sudden like butts in, is like, what color are Simone's eyes? And he goes, brown. Hey, what? And she's asking him these questions that are making him uncomfortable and everything, you know? And she goes, "You like Simone?" He goes, "That's not a question." She goes, "So you're right. You're telling me it's a fact." "Simone, question for you. Do you like Chidi?" "Yes." "Are you mad at Chidi for not asking you out?" "Yes." "Chidi, are you mad at yourself?" "Yes." It's just really cute. You're like, oh, like,
Right?
and again, I'm fully on the Eleanor train, but at the same time, like, I loved their relationship. I loved Simone and Chidi together.
Yes. And you can definitely see how under completely different circumstances they would have had a very beautiful life together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on everything. I just think like the reason that Eleanor and Chidi get together is also a little bit of like they're going through these same things over and over again. So even though at that point Chidi's been wiped and he just knows Eleanor, weird person who showed up and said she wanted to learn about ethics
And flew from Arizona to Australia.
to Australia. I guess I just like I liked a lot showing that things aren't necessarily inevitable, even though that Chidi and Eleanor still did end up together again because of the kind of like shit they go through. The idea that there are other options I thought was really interesting because up till that point it kind of felt like it was a little bit inevitable for them. I don't know, does that make sense? I feel like I'm ranting a little bit, but I liked seeing how their lives be drastically different.
Absolutely. And how Tahani ends up with Larry Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They actually just said it was Larry
The
Hemsworth.
unknown Hemsworth brother.
Yep, the unknown Hemsworth brother who thinks he's super ugly and everything, and people are like, referring to your chiseled jawline? Like, he's gorgeous.
Yep.
And he's a pediatric neurosurgeon or something like that.
That sounds right.
It's like, he's amazing by anybody's standards. But he's just so down on himself and he cracks me up.
See, well, I can imagine the fate of being the unknown Hemsworth brother. It wouldn't be super fun. I think it would be worse to be the unknown Skarsgård brother.
Oh, yeah.
God damn, all them boys are hot. What is that? What is in the water over there? Bring it over here.
And then Tahani and Jason end up getting married.
Yeah.
That's for tax purposes so that she can give him money, though. But it's still, they get married.
I do love that scene where they're like at the bank and the teller is just like, here's the thing. Like, you have the power to do this and like, it's your bank account. I'm just him? This guy?
We're supposed to close the bank if anybody from Florida even walks in here.
Right. Yep.
Sometimes, when Zordon picks you to be a Power Ranger, be a Power Ranger.
I mean, yeah.
Even if it means giving up the hot, unknown Hemsworth.
It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah. With all of this talk of all of these people and the Soul Squad, I think is what they're called, we haven't talked about Michael, our demon architect.
I love my.
Yes.
I love him too. I think the thing that they did such a good job with his character is he is presented as this lovable goofball in the beginning.
He loves humans so much, which you think later on is like something that he came up with for pretending to be a good place architect. And in reality, he actually really does like humans. He's fascinated by them.
Well, and then when he becomes, or not becomes, but shown that he is the bad guy, he's still just a dumb goofball. So at that point, like, you still love him.
Yeah. He's too hard to hate.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that he has this big dream idea of this new way to torture humans that isn't one of the many like bizarre ways that they talk about, like the penis flattening and like filling your butthole full of spiders. That one's one of my personal favorites.
Butthole spiders, by the way, is fucking terrifying.
Oh my god. Spider bites in your anus?
I think this all, like, the tortures that they talk about in the show had to have just been the writers' like nightmares, and they were like, so I had a dream once of this fucking spiders in my butthole. It was terrible. That's what it feels like to me. But yeah, so he has this like big idea that he's going to revolutionize everything, and this is his big shot, and then here comes Eleanor like fucking it all up.
Arizona trash.
Yeah.
I think that's the other reason that Michael is lovable, is who hasn't had like this big idea of how to like make something quote unquote better. And so you're kind of just rooting for him a little bit because he's also the underdog.
Well, and he's also, even when he's like trying to torture them, there's like a part of him that kind of likes them. You can tell already. Like that wasn't just an act in the first season where he's like I'm being really devious, but also like, you're fun. I like this.
It's one of those moments for me. I really like that moment where he is pretending to be like he doesn't know what's wrong with the neighborhood and everything, depressed about it. And because she doesn't want to lie to him about what's actually causing the issues, because Chidi's already been teaching her and everything, she does something to try to distract him. And one of the things she does is take him to do arcade game shit, and the skeet ball, when he was like, that's all you get, and she goes, oh wait, and then she like hits it twice and pulls out like 3 more tickets, and he goes, is that allowed? And she goes, not really, but it is a time-honored tradition. He goes, say no more. And it's a cute moment between them where I feel like he was really enjoying himself, even though in hindsight that he wasn't depressed, he didn't need that situation, but he was having fun doing things that he never thought he'd be able to do, because he is obsessed with humans. You just don't realize until much later on, after you find out that he's evil, that it's actually a real obsession. It's not something he just came up with to fuck with them. You know what I mean?
Well, and skipping to the end a little bit, but on that same thought process, you also learn that he just loves the idea of not knowing what comes next, right? Because as an architect, your eternity is just, for a bad guy architect or a bad place architect, it's just torturing people endlessly for eternity. And that even if you really like torturing people, it's going to get boring eventually.
Yep. At least shove a hot dog down.
Oh, man. Well, I think that one of the things that I really like about the ending is him going back and trying the life as a human. And I'll be completely honest, if they were like, hey, we want to milk more money out of this and create a spinoff show that's just Ted Danson playing this character who doesn't know how to do human, I would watch the shit out of that show.
Yeah.
I'd also watch the shit out of I keep wanting, that's not her name. Tahani. I would watch her like learning to be an architect.
Oh yeah, because that's her thing. She, after they're in the good place and everything, and they have been there for a while, she takes on a whole bunch of different crafts and everything. She learns woodworking and stuff that you wouldn't expect that she'd be into. And once she's like done all of those things, she's decided that it's her time to walk through the door. And then at the last moment, she goes, wait a minute, I want to do what you do, Michael. I want to become an architect, which technically she usually wouldn't be allowed to do because she's a soul. She's not born of the afterlife, as we call it. But I think they allow her to do it because she did basically save the afterlife.
Well, and they're at the point where they're just kind of making up the rules as they go. So
why the hell can't she? Why wouldn't a good an actual human's perspective be very helpful in that situation in creating the neighborhoods and everything?
I will say it's kind of disappointing that seemingly everybody except for Tahani gets to have the happily ever after romantic relationship, and that just is just not something that comes to fruition for her. I mean, they almost portray it as if she doesn't need that at all, and like on one hand that's really great, but we're talking about an eternity here, and so I kind of wish that even if it was the like unknown Hemsworth coming back around, right, that
he has a name, it's Larry.
It's the unknown Hemsworth. It's like the other Tucker. It's like, sure, you've got a name, but we don't care. But I just, even if it was just like a clip of her getting some of that, because I think she deserved to have that as well. And having massive growth and familial development into a loving family, and being able to want to pursue something not because of how she thinks it will look, but because of it being something that she's really passionate about. All of that is super awesome, but it does not, in my opinion, negate her ability to have any of those things. So why doesn't she get to?
I think I kind of actually liked, because if she would have also gotten ever after, it would have said that happily ever after meant having a romantic partner. And I think the idea of having somebody got to have everything else and was happy shows that you don't have to get to that point.
I agree with Liz on that, I like how that ending is for her a little better. I will say that I also kind of took it as she spent her entire life needing the approval of everybody and needing there to be people around her constantly, and I think she's using her afterlife to find her independence and find the things that she likes to do and everything.
I mean, I agree with that to a certain extent, but I don't think that she needed to have a Chidi and Eleanor soulmates, not soulmates, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just the ability to have that, because there's also this thing of, and it lands that way at the end of the show, that women can't have it all, right? You cannot have the career and the passion projects and a healthy family and have a good romantic relationship. And Eleanor doesn't really have a strong pursuit of, I mean, career in the afterlife. What does that even fucking mean, right? But like, she doesn't really have that. She just gets the guy, kind of. And so, yeah, I just, like I said, it does not need to be the big sweeping romantic thing, but just to know that she wasn't alone. She wanted to have a soulmate at the beginning of the series, and she's never given anything close to that, you know?
Yeah, I definitely get that, because and she talks about wanting a soulmate so bad. But to like take on to your point about Eleanor though, do you think Eleanor wants that in her afterlife, career or some version thereof?
No. And I'm not saying that she should, but it's very much for it being the good place. Tahani does not get to have her cake and eat it too. Just that.
If I went to some sort of good place, what would my eternal life be?
See, okay, so I want to talk about something that happens in About Time, which is a movie I've brought up before that I think that we need to maybe watch for this, but I don't want to spoil anything. But there is a character who uses his life really to do that, to like pursue the TBR, right? It's never ending. And I often think that that's amazing, but I also I don't think we could possibly conceive of what a true good place is, because we don't know how to, in this society, to be happy.
Well, not only that, but how to not have, right? Because like right now, if you were to say you went to a paradise, and what would that look like? I would be like, I don't have to cook. I don't have to clean. I can sleep as much as I want. I can play all the video games I want. I can read all I want. But eventually that would run out. Eventually I would be like, okay, well,
I kind of like going then,
right. Or like, well, maybe I do want to try doing something new or different. So it is hard to comprehend what eternity, or however long you want to be there, without a care in the world looks like.
Well, they kind of point that out.
They do.
When they get to the good place, Jason, first thing he wants to do is ride go-karts with monkeys.
Yeah.
Because, of course, he does. And he's gone for maybe 5 minutes before he comes back, and he's like, "You're done already?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I got bored." And he'd literally been talking about it the entire season.
Well, that's kind of where we end up meeting, is it Hypatia?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's literally been in a state of constant contentment for centuries. Mm-hmm. And it's not just that it's boring, it's that it eventually becomes nothing.
It turned their brains to mush.
Right.
Literally.
And
these are the first new people they had seen in 500 years.
I don't remember. It's a long time.
It's a long ass time. And like nobody was even excited about, new people or anything. They just stood there like zombies.
I think that even though it's not even just like when they show up and that good place is flawed, right?
Yeah.
It's there, that same inherent flaw exists in the new good place. Eventually, people get to a point where they're like, I can't, there's nothing else I want to do.
Mhm.
I don't want to relive this beautiful memory that I had when I was on Earth. I don't want to fly to every corner of a conceivable universe that I could think of.
Mhm.
I just don't want to do anything anymore. And I think that that's the part that most of us are going to struggle with when it comes to this conversation, is that it seems like there are infinite possibilities. How could you ever get bored? But eventually you get to the point where you're just soul weary. And I think, once again, it goes back to even this team that's been living in the afterlife and rebooted like 800 times, right? They can't conceive of what a true paradise would be, because eventually your conception as a human being limits what the possibilities are. And for us, what is a driving force for most people is possibility.
Well, it's the same concept when you read a lot of vampire books. Not a lot, but like some of the more serious, like Anne Ricey, where when you're staring down at immortality, eventually you just get tired of it. And I think, I don't think it's a flaw to say that they couldn't come up with a perfect paradise. There might be something to say that there can never be a perfect paradise, because we as people need a drive and a focus or something we're trying to do. And without it, you can only do nothing for so long.
Well, and that's why when they do create the version of the good place and the bad place, they
Mhm.
really did rewrite everything that actually exists in this universe, as far as the ending of people's lives. But they also, when they set up the good place, they give them an out, and it reinvigorated so many
Right.
of the people that had been there for centuries, because all of a sudden, oh, there is actually a way to end this. And some of them just stuck around because they wanted to see what happened next, because it was
Mhm.
change.
Well, there's new. I do think, though, that there probably would be some people who take that out. That is, we don't know. It'd be nothing, be something.
Yeah, I know eventually I probably take it because I get bored.
That hardest. Chidi's ready to long
Oh.
before Eleanor. Like, that is so hard in my brain as somebody who is envisioning what that would be. And I'm just, oh, shit. That would be.
I mean, I bawled. Let's be so honest.
For
Oh.
real.
Oh,
Yeah.
hysterically,
Both watch
ugly
throughs,
crying.
I bawled. Because I watched it once, like I said, while it was actively running on television, and then I rewatched it during COVID, and oh my god, that was devastating. But in some ways, I feel like the devastation is part of what kept Eleanor able to stay longer, right?
Mhm.
Because it's a new feeling. And I think that they do such a good job of understanding the human condition in this show, because that's a perfect example where it's like sometimes feeling bad feels good, you know? And we as a species are so messed up that, like, we would rather have interesting than good, I would say about 70% of the time.
Very true. That's
Yeah.
absolutely true.
And so, yeah, I think that the way that it ends is perfect, as we've already kind of mentioned.
Oh, yeah. No, perfect ending.
What I think of is that, like, space beyond the door, right? Is I keep coming back to Danny, I'm sorry, this is not going to be for you. I keep coming back to the episode where Buffy comes back and finally confesses to Spike that she was not in hell, right? For her, she couldn't, there was nothing tangible, right?
Right.
But she knew that she was at peace, and she knew that she had left everyone she loved and cared about in a better place than they would have been otherwise, or that they were taken care of. I can't remember her exact language, right? And she was ripped out of it.
Yeah.
And so I just really picture that as being what lies beyond, is just finally not having need of any kind.
Including do something.
Right.
I do love how when she does walk through the door, her energy splits off into the universe, and one little bit of it touches a guy who got a letter that wasn't his and he threw it away, and then when she touches that piece of her touches him, he goes and picks it up and he ends up knocking on Michael's door to give him this letter. And it's just a sweet little moment where you realize, that people touch other people, and in that moment I think Michael did recognize her energy a little bit. I mean, he's human now, but he didn't start out that way.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked about and Jason is actually the first one that goes through the door.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Except he doesn't.
Yeah. He goes with Chidi.
That was such a blindside moment too.
Oh, I know. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I loved it because it was like Jason kind of like returning to Jianyu, a fake character, good, bad play of just being like, all right, I'm just chill with the trees and wait for Janet to and he's there for some unknown amount of time.
Several Bearmies.
Whatever that
Jeremy
means.
Bearmies.
Jeremy Bearmies. It's the like their calendar in the afterlife it looks like the cursive words Jeremy Bearimy.
Yeah.
And when they talk about it, Chidi goes, what is the dot on the I?
Yeah.
And they're like, Tuesdays. And sometimes never. And he's like, that broke me. The dot broke me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so he's there for several years in Afterlife time, just sitting in the trees, waiting for Janet to come back.
Yeah. I mean, he could have left and went and found her, but it's Jason.
It's true.
It's Jason.
Because, like, he decides that he's going first, and then Tahani decides many Bearmies later, but then she decides to become an architect, and then it's Chidi.
Yep.
After many more Bearmies.
Yeah. Jason is, I don't know. He's so
man.
dumb.
It's so dumb.
Oh my god. He's the definition of a himbo right there. Just like, oh god. What are you?
He's a sweetheart, but he's so dumb.
But he's so dumb. And like,
He's a hot dum-dum.
it's exactly, yeah, that's what he's called, the hot dum-dum. I just also love that the reason he was finally done is he got the like ultimate score in Madden.
I know.
Playing as
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes.
It's like, I've achieved everything I need to achieve. I also think that because Jason would have just burned through all the crazy ideas that he had, I think
Right.
it makes total sense that he would be the first one.
Agreed.
Oh yeah, he has no patience.
And I mean, he got to see his best friend come to the afterlife. He got to see his dad come to the afterlife. Got to see them be able to come into the good place after going through their trials and everything. Because that's the other great thing about the ending is people slowly from their lives previous start showing up. So like Eleanor's roommates who they were terrible with and everything, and Jason's family. Pillboy. Oh boy.
Oh, Pillboy.
Pillboy is one of my favorite side characters because he's just so ridiculous,
He's so
but so earnest about
I know.
everything.
And you get to see slowly their families start to come and their people, how they affected their lives and everything. And that's kind of neat to see that they're spending time with the people that they loved on Earth who have now passed their tests to come to the good place.
You know, one character that we haven't talked about that is one of my favorite side characters is Doug Forsett.
Doug Forsett.
Oh, Forsett.
Oh my
Doug
god.
Just
Forsett.
right.
Right? Oh my god. I just love it that like for the longest part of like the first season, he's like the reference point of like Doug Forsett got it like 98% right or something like that.
He went on a bad trip and his friend asked him, what do you think happens when we die? And apparently he got like 98% of what actually happens. And it freaked them all out.
Yeah. They're like, no one has ever been as close as Doug Forsett. His like name is like an honorific Doug Forsett.
And then it's all sorts of tragic when we actually meet Doug Forsett.
Oh.
And he is basically, in a way, kind of like wasting his life trying so hard to be this ultimate perfect person to get into the good place. And as we've learned at this point, or not at this, triggers that you can't get in you can't be ultimately good. And it's really
with all
tragic.
the consequences.
Yeah.
Well, and then subsequently, he's allowing himself to be abused.
Yep.
Well, and for a show that's all about the afterlife, it really manages to bob and weave around religion in a very elegant way. And I think the closest you get to a call out to religion is Doug Forsett, and in that his religious level of pursuit of trying to be good enough to be getting into the good place really talks to the obsession some people have of dedicating this life to hopefully being good enough for the next one rather than living this life. And I think that it's hard to watch because on some level there's people out there that are doing a version of this, only their choices very frequently are not as altruistic as Doug Forsett's are.
Well, and the other only mention I think I did ever hear in this show of religion is at the very beginning. She asks who was right, and he basically said every religion had some aspects of it correct. And then that's when he mentions Doug Forsett. He goes, everybody had it about 10 or 12% correct, except for Doug Forsett. And she's like, ooh. And then that's when he goes into the explanation of that he was a stoner kid.
But that's another one of those great call outs that's like, they obviously had to have planned that they were going to be the trigger learning. You can't get into not be more. But to plant that in the first episode as just like this throwaway joke, I think it just shows a really good job of showing how they must have planned all of the season.
Exactly. They do the same thing with Derek.
Oh, Derek.
So
They
great.
bring Derek in season 1 because Janet finds out that she was married to Jason in their first reboot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's then marrying Tahani, and she starts to glitch because she's inadvertently upset even though she doesn't really realize that she is. And so Eleanor tells her to get her some. She basically tells her to find a rebound guy. And so Janet's way of finding a rebound guy is to create one.
God, Derek is too fucking funny.
Oh God,
The
Derek is so
evolution of
fucking funny.
him, it's so good.
He's so incorrect in his brain. He constantly is like, Derek? That's most of what he says is Derek until he's been rebooted millions of times. And then he still says Derek.
Yeah, and then he's still
Still a little messed up. But eventually he turns into a fucking nebula that appears when you say his name. He's ridiculous. Also, he does not have private parts. He chimes.
What's a girl supposed to do with wind
Well, it leads to
chimes,
this really
Janet?
funny line when you find out that Minnie St. Clair's been rebooting him over and over and over again, where he's like, and I almost have a full penis now. And you're like, okay, good for you, buddy. But then the more you think about it, we're like, what does that mean? What does it mean? And then you're like, don't tell me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Well, if you think about it, he starts with wind chimes and then ends up with an almost. So what is
right?
the transition between wind
Is it
chimes and
less
penis?
chimes? Is it, or does it transition from basically the little metal pipes for the wind chimes, and then eventually it gets into those bamboo pipes, and then eventually it's one bamboo pipe? What are we dealing with here?
I don't know. And I don't
I
even
love when
want
they're
to.
getting down and Minnie St. Clair's like, oh my god, your wind chimes, they feel so weird. What is he doing with them? And then they're jingling the whole time, and so you're like, there shouldn't be that much air between the two of them, so how are they jingling? Listen, the way my brain tried to sort this out.
When Janet reabsorbs his energy, and all of a sudden Eleanor goes, oh no, guys, I hear wind chimes. Everybody, look away, look away. I'm still gonna watch, but look away.
Oh god, that's one of my favorite things about Eleanor is she's just the constant dirty jokes. Everything is just, how can we make this into some nasty ass comedy? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here for that.
And she's constantly hitting on Tahani and Janet.
Yeah, I totally get it. Well, I also love that both Janet and Tahani are kind of yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could maybe.
And Tahani's final thing that she was gonna check off the list is that she objectified Eleanor.
That's right. Oh gosh.
She just aggressively hit on her.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I mean, she's a smoke show too.
Okay. Also, before we totally like walk away from Janet again, I gotta say that actress, I cannot think of her name off the top of my head anymore, but god damn, she's good. Think about all the
she's
things they asked
fantastic.
her to do. She's bad Janet. She's fucking neutral Janet. She's disco Janet.
Fucking Diskin was hilarious.
I can't remember her name either, but I know she's a
Well, there's
stand-up
also an
comedian.
episode where she plays Eleanor and Chidi and Tahani and Jason as Janet. Like,
Yes.
Yes, they're all
the
in
thing,
her void.
she just like, they were like, hey, here's a weird acting challenge that doesn't make any goddamn sense. How you want to go do that? And she's like, okay, I guess. Like, I guess this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, she's amazing. I always think about that because she does do so much in this show. And oh god, she craps so. Her fucking bad Janet. Oh my god.
I love that Dink is one of
Bad
the bad
Janet's great.
Janet's like favorite disses. Stupid Dink.
Yeah.
It's her go-to diss.
Yeah.
That
Like,
dink.
oh my god. I don't know why, but I find that fucking hilarious.
And her trademark is to just like rip
Yeah.
ass.
You know what I think about that? Lifts leg. I also love that bad Janet is always on her phone. Like, just like, who are you texting? You're in the fucking afterlife. Like, what are you doing on your phone? That's what I want. That's the information that I'm lacking is I want screenshots. What is bad Janet doing on her phone?
Maybe she's just texting all the other bad Janets.
Maybe. I will say I really appreciate that like they had caught bad Janet at one point and he gave her the like manifesto of what everything had happened so far. And when the judge wants to just completely reboot the world, she steps up and is like, nope. And they like hid the clicker device thing in one of the Janets. But it's bad Janet that comes up and is like, nope, like she helps with this distraction and everything because she also knows that this isn't the way the world is supposed to be and the universe is supposed to be. And I really appreciate that bad Janet also came in.
I love the marbling of Janet episode where like the judge is going through and like all the Janets show up and they're like all getting turned into marbles.
She's marbleizing them because that's how apparently you get rid of a Janet is to stick a paperclip in their ear and push their nose.
Let's talk about the judge though, because she is a fascinating character in that she's supposed to be impartial, right? And and Maya Rudolph like fucking kills it. Right. And I love the like bit where she's obsessed with shows that start Timothy Oliphant.
Yeah.
He's
do love Timothy Oliphant.
smoking for sure. Anyway, sorry I got distracted.
We didn't even pull up a picture of him, Wiggles. God.
My brain did.
Look, they're rebooting Justified right now, and I just saw that in my head.
Yeah. Anyway, moving forward. So she's an amazing character. She's a fun character. She does like a lot of really fun bits in it. But at the end of the day, I don't think the judge is neutral. Like,
No.
as a foible to the characters, that made sense. But when it's like her character is supposed to be truly neutral, she definitely chooses the evil side. That is not a good person. She is not on the side of good.
Well,
she's definitely on the side of evil. Like she's not neutral.
I see it less as her being definitively on the side of evil and more her being on the side of liking the system as is. And
Yeah.
it serves her the way it is. So why would she go drastic change?
But
Which
I will
you
say
could define as, but not necessarily bad.
Yeah. I will say, though, that as soon as Sean came around as well, she
Yeah.
was like, fine, let's do this, you know? But I feel like she also, you could say she is more neutral because she needed everybody to agree before they put that situation in place. Like,
Right.
Sean also had to be in on it.
Okay, so I guess here, before we get into our ratings, where do you think you land? Good place, bad place, middle place?
When they are at the end and they have it all kind of
No, not
quote-unquote
what do
fixed.
you want. Where
No,
do you
where
think
do you
you
think
would
you would-
land?
I understand that, but are you talking about at the end?
I'm talking about before they fix things.
Well, before they fix things, we all go to the bad place.
She has a
Okay, fine. After they fix it, where do you land?
I would definitely be a middle place person.
I think so too.
Yeah. I wouldn't be like bottom of the barrel middle place, but I'm middle place scum. I know that.
I wasn't calling you scum. I was agreeing for me.
Yeah, I know.
I just realized that it sounded like I was like, yeah,
Yeah, Liz,
yeah,
you are.
yeah, Liz, you're scum.
What about you?
I think I'm in the bad place.
What?
I think I'm in the
You-
bad place.
You have to be bad to go to the bad place at the end, though. Like,
You have to be like a murderer.
in fact, the bad place doesn't even really exist. Does everybody just get an opportunity to go to the middle place and like fix themselves?
I don't
I
know.
think there's factors like if you did truly evil things, murder, that kind of thing, you go to the bad place
Okay.
for general torture. Others that are kind of medium people, they go to get tested and to be improved and everything to learn before that they can accept their place in the good place. And then, of course, obvious good place is
Yeah.
good place.
Yeah, definitely middle place.
Same.
Solid middle place.
Yeah.
You didn't murk any.
Not that
that
you
I'm aware
know of. Okay, so time to wrap up. What do
Dear
you
God.
guys think about our non-spice rating?
The only spice is like the sex tape that Mindy St. Clair
Right.
has of Eleanor and Chidi. So, I mean, it is a 0. They kiss.
Yeah. They kiss.
There's a lot of sexual
Implied.
comments.
Yeah,
An
there's a lot
innuendo.
of implied things like
Yeah.
they totally bang it up in the Good Place Postal Service thing when he puts on the.
He does look cute
Right.
in that. I
he does
gotta
look cute
say.
in that. She's obsessed with postmen.
He
What is
is
his
a hot
uniforms?
man.
No, it's mailman.
Oh.
She's obsessed with.
Like that actor. So I had started watching The Good Place and then eventually got around to watching Midsummer, and he's in it, and I like could not reconcile the two. I was like, no, my Chidi would never. How dare you?
I haven't seen Midsummer, but I saw him in Ant-Man Quantumania, and I was just like, I was so confused as I watched it. I was like, Chidi, what are you doing?
I just love all the jokes that she makes in it. She's like, he's surprisingly jacked, and you're like, he really is, because like he takes off his shirt when he's having the like existential crisis, and he makes the giant pot of chili with fucking peeps
Oh
in
God, that's hilarious.
Oh, God.
it, and
You
he
put
just
the
walks
peeps
into a
in the
store
chili
with,
pot and
he walks into a store with no shirt on. You're like, oh, Chidi.
well, somehow with the shirt on, which is like a Live Laugh Wine or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he looks even more ripped,
Yeah, he just doesn't have a normal sweater vest situation.
hiding all the goods.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that man is hot.
Yeah, he is.
And they put him in nerd clothes and we're like, they'll never notice. It's like, no, sir, we
No,
noticed.
we noticed.
We noticed.
We know.
Everyone can see him. Everyone, like he's there.
Well, that describes the spice rating of the show, as in there isn't any. So what is your romance rating?
I honestly give it like a 4. I really enjoyed the relationships in these, and they weren't toxic for once. And even when they had their toxic moments, they like addressed it. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I don't know. I'm sitting between a 3.5 and a 4. I'm not really sure where I land.
I'm leaning more, I almost even want to go 3. Not because the romance is bad, but the show wasn't about romance. It was a show that had romance in it. And so the focus of it wasn't romance. It used romance as a tool to have other conversations. So I guess I'll land on a 3.5.
And that's kind of why I was thinking 3.5. So
Yeah, well, and I understand that. Like, it isn't the main focus of the show, but I do really enjoy the relationships that they built and that they built over time.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that sounds good. That brings us to the big rating. The big kahuna. What's your overall rating?
I mean,
This is a 5 for me. It's
it's a
one of
5.
my favorite shows.
It's a really good show, and it has rewatch value that in a way that a show like this really should not be able to pull off, but it does. So for me, it's a 5.
I'm at a 4.5, and I can't tell you why it's not a 5. There's just it's like a vibe check, and the vibe is real close, real close. So the best definition of that I can give you. So we'll move on to something more tangible and less stupid that I say. What are your guys' recommendations and good fucking?
Okay, I have a weird one.
You always do.
See, here's the thing. I no longer believe you when you say, I've got a weird one, because most of the time you're like, I've got this weird one, and I can see where you're coming from.
Okay.
So either we're both weird.
I mean, arguably, we already are aware of that situation. But I say Futurama.
Oh, I actually could see that.
Yeah.
Because it's got a lot of like interconnected relationships that are good together and everything and build over time. It also has unexpected feeler moments. Futurama can gut punch you every now and then that you're like, where the fuck did that come from? And so yeah, that's just kind of what I thought. Liz has such a confused look on her face right now.
No, it's not confused. No, I'm just now thinking about Futurama that I haven't watched in a while.
I know. Need to
I don't
rewatch
think
it.
I've ever actually watched a season all the way through. I've just seen random episodes.
I think that's mostly my thing too, is I've just seen a lot of random episodes. So I know what the story is. I just haven't watched it from beginning.
That dog episode.
Let's
Why
not
don't
let's
you
not
talk
go
about
there.
that
Let's
shit?
not go there.
No, don't you talk about that shit.
No. You don't need to put that in my head before I go to bed tonight.
Fair enough. Who's got another recommendation?
I do.
All right, what you got for me?
So this was one of my favorite shows for a good long stint, but no one else had fucking seen it for some reason. And it's called Dead Like Me.
Oh, that's a good show.
It's a good fucking show. And the premise is this character, George, she dies in an equally embarrassing way. She gets hit by a toilet seat that flies out of an airplane and lands on her like a fucking meteorite. And when she passes, she happens to be the right number of souls to be collected that the Grimm, essentially, or Reaper is actually what they use in that storyline, who comes to collect her soul, is now able to pass the torch on to the next person. So she becomes a Reaper. And so the first season is a lot of her figuring out the rules, what the expectations are, but also when she's not actively reaping a soul, she's living a normal, quote unquote, normal life, while also grieving her own life and watching her friends and family move on without her. It's a really interesting show and has Mandy Patinkin in it. So,
oh, I do love me some Mandy Patinkin.
Never heard of it, but it sounds fascinating.
it's got a lot of good humor, but also has conversations kind of like this show has, where it's like, what is waiting for us on the other side, and what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong. So yeah, I think maybe the reason that people don't talk about it as much anymore is because it got canceled before it could really take off. Like it only had a couple of seasons, and I think with a few more, it would have been one of those shows that we talk about all the time.
I'll have to check it out. My two suggestions, one is kind of an easy one, and it's just because I think the comedy is relatively similar-ish, but nothing else about it is Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess also in that show, there's a lot of both in romantic relationships, but also just friendships. And also Derek's in it as this crazy cop that just had a very long stint. Yes.
And the demon boss is Kevin.
Yes, the demon bosses. And my other suggestion is Lucifer.
I have not watched that.
Yeah, it's based on Neil Gaiman's with a comics called Lucifer. You first meet him in the Man comics, but the premise of it is Lucifer decides to say fuck it, and he's done being the devil and decides to come to Earth and just fuck around and own a bar, nightclub, and live life as this kind of like almost super, I guess. And then he falls into being a like consultant for the LAPD to help solve all sorts of murders and crimes and stuff. It's got pretty good comedy in it, and it also just kind of questions, I don't know, spirituality in the world and all that. So.
I have not watched it, partially because from the clips that they show of it, or the promotion that they show of it, it looks like they were like, what if we just took a cop procedural and gave you a Sherlock Holmes, only the Sherlock Holmes is the devil himself, right? And so I've been like, but you say Neil Gaiman, and I'm gonna go watch it.
Well, I guess I really don't think of him as Sherlock in any way. He's kind of just dicking around for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And he's funny and he's very sassy.
Oh, yeah.
And hot.
Oh,
hot.
That I can concede. Any pictures I've seen of that man, I'm like, sir.
Sir.
One of my other favorite plots in that, or like storylines in that, is he goes to see a psychiatrist or a counselor or whatever, just to cope with life. And so he just like tells her, oh yeah, if I remember correctly, he just tells her like, I'm the devil and blah, blah, blah. It's really interesting to just watch the devil go to like a human counselor and talk about his human problems, and she gives him human solutions, and it's really fun.
Yeah, I'll be checking that out.
His interactions with the cop's daughter kill me every time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's so cute. All right, everyone. Well, that kind of wraps it up for us here. If you liked this episode, or even if you didn't, you can still find us out there on all the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets or Wrong Jackets on what is now called X. Or you can just find us on our website at wrongdustjackets.com. Please rate, review, leave a comment wherever you are listening to this. We'd love to hear from you. Send us suggestions, whatever you got. That's all there is. So bye, y'all.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.